Alright, so currently our game does not have any audio elements. So what we're going to do is we are going to add just a background song, just the soundtrack, and then we're just going to make a sound for when we jump and for when we kill an enemy. And then you can apply the same principle to any number of things, like when you get health or points or whatever you want to do, okay? But I'm just going to assign to these, and it should be relatively straightforward. So the first thing I need to do is go to my assets folder, and then I'm going to make a new folder to hold my audio. So just right click, create folder, and we'll just call it audio. Alright, open that up, and we're just going to drop some audio in there. So I already have a couple of audio clips that I grabbed. So one is background music, another one is the enemy dying, and one is for jumping. So I'm just going to grab all three of these, and they're just waves. Unity accepts quite a few different kind of audio clips, but you're probably going to have to check to see exactly what it will be accepting of for yours. So hopefully it's taking a second. All right, so that worked pretty well. So the way the audio works is it's actually when you play audio, it consists of two things. You have to have a listener, and you have to have a player, basically. Okay, we already have a listener because by default the camera has an audio listener, but you can also add another component, and you can do an audio source. Okay, and the idea here is that you could have an audio source, let's say on an enemy. And then when you get closer to the enemy, like maybe it only plays so far. When you get close enough to the enemy, it gets louder and louder and louder, right? So, and the same thing with the audio listener. It'll be the audio that the player gets will be based off the location of the audio listener, which is attached to our player anyway. Plus, it's a 2D game, so that really isn't as much of a factor as it might be in a 3D game. So this is fine. So we can just leave that alone. Just be aware that if you do have multiple cameras, you could possibly have more than one audio listener, and it will throw an error. I think it still works, but I think it'll be weird. Anyway, so we actually have to create a component. Now, it is possible to add multiple audio components, but that's not a very efficient way of working, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to actually get to through script. So what we're going to do instead is I'm just going to make like a group of audio stuff and go from there. So we're going to go create empty. And we'll just call this audio controller. Okay, and I'm just going to zero it out. It actually doesn't matter. I just like to keep things zeroed out because, I don't know, it bothers me. And then we'll create another empty, create empty. And this one we will call, I don't know, we'll call it music underscore audio. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just gonna. Okay, so we'll call it music underscore audio. Then we'll add a component, audio, and then we'll do an audio source. Okay, voila, it's got the audio source. Right here, you'll see audio clip. So this is just gonna drop and drag. So I'm gonna grab my music and drop it onto here. All right, you can also hit the little thing there. Now it says play and awake, which means it's immediately gonna play. But it's only going to play once, so I'm going to tell it to loop. Because this is my music, right? So the music should keep playing indefinitely. So play and awake and loop is totally fine. That works great. I'm just going to take this and parent it to my audio controller. I'm just going to have this kind of, all my audio, I'm just going to group here, so that way I know where it all is. Instead of having to do the whole thing again, I'm just going to duplicate this by hitting Control D, obviously Command D on a PC. Now the next one, I'm going to change the name here. Take this off. Oops, audio. And we'll call this one jump audio. Now this is going to be a little bit different. So I don't want it to loop, obviously. I also don't want it to play on awake. I don't want it to, basically if it's on play on awake, as soon as you hit play, it will be awake and it will just play. It's only going to play once, but we actually want it to turn on specifically when we want it to. Also need to switch this to my jump audio. So I'm just going to drag my jump audio on there, and now this one is set up. Oh, I'm going to go back to my music here, and I'm just going to take the volume. Where are you? And I'm just going to put around, like, I don't know, around 50%. Okay, just so that it's a little bit behind. You'll probably have to play around with this to get to the whatever you want to sound like, but I'm not that concerned. Okay, so this one's now set up. Oh, I'm just going to zero this out. Again, it doesn't actually matter. It just bothers me that it's not. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And I'll just duplicate this, Control D. And we'll just call this one enemy death underscore audio. Enemy death. And I can leave all the settings. I just need to put this enemy death audio clip in there. There we go. Okay, so now we have these audio clips that we can turn on. So the music, we're not going to mess with at all. That's just going to play. Okay. Later on, if you want to have a piece of code that you can have a slider and you can adjust the audio or turn it on and off, you could do that, right? It's just a property attached to this. Okay. But I want to be able to control these. So what we're going to do is go to my player controller scripts, go to scripts, player controller script, and I'm going to open that puppy up. Boom. And it went off screen. Okay. Let's bring it over here. Close you out. All right. And I need to just add some stuff here to make it work. So I'm just going to put it at the end here because as we've been adding stuff, I just keep putting it down here. So we're just going to do a private game object. Game object. And then it's just going to be audio controller. And that's just going to hold this guy right here, this game object. Okay, so the type is game object, and I'm just going to call it the same thing it's actually called, but just lowercase because it's a variable in here. Now we need to go ahead and actually grab it. So in here, I'm just going to go ahead and do audio controller, and I'm going to just do game object dot find. I can't do get component because it's not a component. It's in the scene somewhere, so I have to find it. And we want to find the thing called audio controller, right? And that should be the exact same name as this. So make sure make sure this is exactly the same as this. Okay, so one misspelled, the other one will not work. All right, now what we're gonna do is just go ahead and make things play. So basically on our jump, so where we do our jumping, where is that? Right here. So we do our jumping. We can just put it right before this even starts. We're just going to go ahead and have it play the audio. So it's going to be this audio controller, okay, because that's the object that has the objects in there. Now this is kind of weird. So what I want to do is actually get its children. So I want to get audio controller and then the child that's inside of it. I want to get this jump audio. But the way that it works is that the objects are all, the parenting works by the transform. So when something's parented, it's actually parented by transform. And what I mean by that is this. Like if I grab this object, right? It's right here. If I move this object over, you'll notice that music is also now over. Right? So like watch, if I move this over, if I grab audio controller, see how it's moving that technically too? So it's the way that the parenting actually works, it's by transform. I know it's kind of weird because you think it would just be an object and another object, but the way that they're linked is through that. So the way to get to a child is oddly through its transform. So we have to do this dot transform, and then inside the transform, I'm going to find the thing called jump underscore audio. Okay, and then dot. I want the object, and then I want the game object of that. And in that game object, I want to get the component, and the component I want to get is the audio source. And then in the audio source, I want it tell it to play. It's a whole lot of code. Okay, so look at that, and copy it, pause it if you need to. So what that's going to do is it's going to say, okay, go to here. Find in your children one called jump audio, and then in jump audio, get the component called audio source, and then in audio source, it's not on here, but there's a function to just say play, and then we're going to say play the audio source. So basically, every time that we go to jump, that's what it's going to do. So now you can hit save. Let's go over here, make sure it is working. More complicated the code, the more likely it is to, not function properly. Okay. Go to the game tab and make sure, I often put this on, make sure you turn that off if you have mute audio. So you're going to hear music right off the bat because we played the one thing there. But there it goes. Works great. Okay. The other one I want to do is just when we hit this guy, right? So, kind of the same thing. I'm going to go back to my code here. And for that, we made this void enemy check, and we destroy the enemy. So basically right here, I'm just going to do the same thing. I just have to change the code a little bit. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and grab it from here. Control-C, go down here to where there's enemy check. We say, oh, then to raycast, and then destroy the enemy. I'm going to go ahead and paste this in here. Audio controller, transformed out fine. But instead of jump audio, it's enemy death audio. And then it's just play, right? Because the rest of it's all the same. We just need to change the clip, the object that it's looking for inside of it, because they both have the audio source and it's just playing. So, save that, go back here, and we wait. Hopefully we can hit play. Come on. There we go, and we'll see if we can murder these guys. It's not the... Oh, I missed him. Ah! Alright, and it works. Yay! So that's the lump sum of it. You can put as many of those in that you want, and all you're going to do literally is just tell them to play. You just have to have a way of connecting to them and making that audio play when you want it to. And that's really all it comes down to, okay? So that's the audio. It's relatively straightforward. There you go.